Did you ever notice how hard it is to find Coors beer at gay bars in San Francisco, especially the old school ones? There's a reason for that. Welcome back to Yesterqueers. My name's Amanda, and I'm a public historian of queer history. The Coors Brewing Company was founded in 1875 by a German immigrant named Adolf Coors and a Prussian immigrant named Joseph Schuyler, with a Pilsner recipe that they bought from a Czech immigrant named William Sillen. Of the more than 1,300 breweries that were in operation across the country when the Volstead Act went into effect, Coors was one of only about 100 to survive Prohibition. By 1975, Coors was the fourth largest brewer in the United States, and its facility in Golden, Colorado was the single largest brewing complex in the world. At the time, it was run by Adolf Coors' grandsons, Joseph and William Coors. William described his younger brother Joseph as a little bit right of Attila the Hun, and that may actually have been underselling the point. Joseph Coors was one of the co-founders of the Heritage Foundation and is widely known as the man who bought Ronald Reagan the White House. He is also the man who added polygraphs to Coors' hiring process in the 1960s, asking interviewees invasive questions about drug use, debts owed, family members, political affiliation, and sexuality. Of course, Coors denied that it was using the polygraph to weed out political liberals, immigrants, and homosexuals, but Coors' own data shows that 45% of interviewees failed their hiring process after taking the polygraph. Keep all of that in mind as we jump to 1966, when the American GI Forum, which is a congressionally chartered Hispanic veterans and civil rights organization, partnered with a local Denver group called Crusade for Justice to initiate a boycott against Coors. There were three main issues at play. Coors' attempt to decertify Brewery Local 366, which had represented its employees since 1934. The company's blatant discrimination against Black, Latine, and Native people, as well as against women and queer people in their hiring practices. And the Coors family using its significant wealth to fund right-wing and anti-environmental politicians and organizations. Since its founding, Coors had only been distributed in 11 states in the West, 13 once they were able to start selling in Washington and Oregon in 1976. Coors couldn't be licensed for sale east of the Mississippi, and it gave the brand a certain cachet. People like Gerald Ford and Paul Newman hoarded it, and the acquisition of 400 illegal cases of Coors beer is the plotline of one of America's most popular movies. But their limited distribution meant that word of the boycott spread quickly, especially once union organizers and civil rights groups joined forces. By 1973, Teamsters Local 921, which had organized Coors' delivery drivers in San Francisco, was tired of the company's anti-union stance. An out-gay Teamsters driver and activist named Howard Wallace, along with Alan Baird from Teamsters Local 888 and Harvard Milk, brokered an agreement between the Teamsters and San Francisco's queer community. The partnership marked the first time that the traditionally conservative Teamsters had ever worked with LGBTQ+ groups, and this was a really big deal because Coors was the beer of choice throughout gay bars in the West. Queer activists agreed to support the Teamsters by making sure that Coors was not served at any gay bars in San Francisco. And in return, the Teamsters agreed to hire more openly gay drivers and to publicly come out in opposition to California's homophobic ballot measure known as the Briggs Amendment, which I've talked about before. The 11-year boycott and a subsequent labor strike worked in that it reduced Coors' market share across the western states from 40% to as low as 14% in California, but it didn't bring Coors to the bargaining table. Activists and the Coors company remained at a stalemate for another 10 years until the AFL-CIO won enough concessions to finally end their boycott in 1988. But those concessions did not include reinstating Local 366 at the Golden facility, and Coors continued to have a pretty terrible record when it came to working conditions and discrimination. So because of that, many members of the queer and Latine communities have never ended their boycott of Coors. That's it for today. As always, more information, including sources and further reading, is available in the usual place.